Der Krieg ist eine Katastrophe für die Ukraine, aber der Krieg wird sich auch als Katastrophe für Russland erweisen.
A couple of years or so back at a security forum somewhere in Europe, I had a conversation with a reasonably senior German diplomat. It was off the record, which is why I'm muddying the details somewhat. I wasn't drunk or anything. We were discussing Ukraine, inevitably, with particular reference to the certain anxious reluctance besetting some of its allies about meeting Ukraine's requests for ever more powerful weaponry. At the time, Germany's Leopard tanks were at issue. Ukraine wanted some, and Germany was humming and hawing. I asked the diplomat what the hold-up was. History, he replied. The spectacle, he said, of German tanks, panzers, if you will, being loaded onto trains and sent east to fight the Russians. It was, he glumly feared, liable to stir up some stuff of which most Germans would prefer not to be reminded. My response, though I phrased it more delicately, was along the lines of phooey. Nobody else, I suggested, seriously believed that Germany was still that country. There is no reason why actual Germans should. Besides which, there does come a point at which even the most commendably honest and humble reckoning with one's past becomes an excuse to avoid dealing with the present. Germany is Europe's biggest country by population and by GDP. It is absurd, verging indeed on dishonourable, that it does not play a key role in Europe's defence.
Germany has decided in principle to buy F-35 fighter jets from the US. That's according to new reports citing government sources. Berlin plans
Germany's all but certain new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, appears to grasp this. Since leading the Christian Democratic Union to victory in Sunday's general election, he has taken a notably robust line on the menaces posed by a belligerent Russia and a wavering United States. It is clear he has said that the current US administration is not much bothered about Europe. He has spoken about the urgent need for Europe to achieve, quote, independence from the US. It is bracing talk from a career-long Atlanticist.
My personal position and the position of my parliamentary group has always been clear on these cruise missiles. And I would like to repeat again what I'm saying during the election campaign now, that we should be willing to deliver.
It remains to be seen whether Germany will do anything serious about this now. But it remains an interesting question as to why Germany hasn't done more before. You would think that such a famously practical people would be all in on the military wisdom which holds of any given capability, that it is better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. The more obvious history does not need to keep us long. In the first half of the 20th century, Germany twice embarked on wars of conquest fueled by a culture of militarism, and twice brought ruin upon itself, the first time financially, the second time physically. This proved sufficient to put Germans off tooling up again, and also to make Germany's European neighbours wary of letting them. NATO's first Secretary-General, the British General Lord Ismay, famously quipped that the alliance's mission, where Europe was concerned, was to keep the Russians out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. Germany's military redevelopment was further hindered by the fact that there were, for a few decades, two Germanys, and two German militaries theoretically prepared to fight each other should the Cold War ever run hot. When Germany reunified in 1990, West Germany faced the considerable task of absorbing East Germany's National People's Army, who had to be trained on NATO standard kit and trained out of rigid top-down communist command doctrines. None of this was easy or cheap, but when one runs Germany's numbers, one struggles not to agree with American harumphing, and Donald Trump is not the first US president to make such complaints about Europe in general, Germany in particular, slumbering beneath a stars and stripes spangled umbrella. There are presently, give or take, 35,000 American soldiers stationed at roughly 40 US bases in Germany. Until last year, Germany had spent 3.5 decades well adrift of the NATO defence spending threshold of 2% of GDP. It is partly history again. When West Germany's military, precursor to the modern Bundeswehr, was formally established in 1955, the only readily available officers were those who had served in Hitler's Wehrmacht, some, indeed, in the SS. This did not endear the new German military to a new Germany. A career in the military never quite became seen as the admirable aspirational path it is perceived as in most Western countries. The best and brightest tended to seek alternative employment. Even despite the deafening wake-up call of a major European land war launched by a revanchist Russia, Germany's military remains woefully understaffed and under-equipped. When Russia attacked Ukraine 3 years ago, the chief of the German army, Lieutenant General Alphonse Mays, vented his frustrations on LinkedIn.
The Bundeswehr, the army that I am privileged to lead, is more or less bare. The options that we can offer the politicians to support the alliance are extremely limited. This does not feel good. I'm pissed off.
Despite the €100 billion modernisation fund created in the wake of Russia's assault, a report last year assessed the Bundeswehr as ageing and shrinking and possessing too little of everything. Incoming Chancellor Merz wants to create another defence fund even before the current parliament dissolves, and so he should. If we may expand on the wake-up call metaphor, Germany has come to resemble someone repeatedly hitting snooze while a fire creeps towards the neighbourhood, leaving others to wield the hoses. Christine Lambrecht, speaking during her tenure as Defence Minister in Germany's outgoing government, was altogether correct when she said that it was long past time that Germany became a leading European power, acknowledging and articulating her country's perennial angst as she did so. Our uneasiness, she said, obscures something essential, that Germany de facto leads even when it does not want to. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mullett.